Hi guys, we're going to talk about scapular upward rotation and what it means for throwers. Scapular upward rotation is really just a fancy way of saying how your shoulder blade rotates up on your rib cage when you try to get to that position where you're going to throw, or in the case of general fitness folks, how you get your arm overhead to overhead press, snatch, whatever it may be. So what we have to use as our landmarks is where that scapula sits on the rib cage. So the first thing we're going to look at, Tony sits in a little bit of scapular depression. I'm not going to worry about it for the sake of today's kind of discussion. One of the things we look at with guys is not just the distance of the scapula from the spine, but also the angle it creates. So we like to see people sitting about 5 degrees of upward rotation when that scapula is at rest. Okay, what that does is it puts us in a good position to start to upwardly rotate as we get going. Okay, so what you'll want to see is you'll want to see that inferior medial border to be just a little bit further out than the superior medial border, and Tony's in a pretty good spot there. Okay, so taking that a step further, if you actually think about how the rhythm of your shoulder blades work on your rib cage, something called scapulohumeral rhythm is an important thing to understand. Okay, so for that first 30 degrees or so that we raise our arm, our scapula really doesn't need to move at all. Okay, once we get back past that, okay, our scapula needs to start to upwardly rotate to accommodate that movement of the arm itself. Okay, so what's really important is that that is synced up correctly, meaning we have enough upward rotation to accommodate how much humeral motion is taking place, because that keeps that ball and socket congruency where it needs to be. Okay. What we typically see in both general fitness folks and particularly in throwers is they lack scapular upward rotation. So when they get to that top position as a landmark, if we draw a line down the spine and then we mark off the medial border of the scapula, we like to see folks get to about 55 degrees of upward rotation. What you'll often see is that people come back after a long season and overusing that lat with lots of throwing, and that scapula will sit in a little bit more downward rotation in that top position and potentially even at rest. So this is a big problem, because if you can't upwardly rotate to maintain that ball and socket congruency, that ball rides up relative to the socket. And if you think about what happens to our throwers, they tend to have superior labral tears, they have biceps tendon irritation, they have undersurface cuff tears, all those coming because the humeral head, the ball, rides up too much relative to the socket. So getting guys right is about two different things. It's about getting that shoulder blade up a little bit more so that that congruency is good here, and it's also about getting good cuff strength to make sure that that humeral head doesn't ride up so much, okay? So oftentimes, if you don't have good cuff strength, you don't have good scapular control, we have to look to other restraints to pick up the slack. Okay? In throwers, this is that anterior capsule. It's also that biceps tendon, which together prevent both superior glide, so the ball can't ride up too much, and anterior glide, or the ball can't slide forward too much. All right? So we throw in external rotation, there's a tendency for that ball to come forward in the socket. So basically what this tells us is that keeping a shoulder healthy isn't just about getting that shoulder blade to rotate up enough to accommodate that arm slot, but it's also about making sure that I'm strong enough in here to prevent the head of the humerus from gliding forward and creating problems as we externally rotate back. Okay, so this isn't just important in terms of our really classic injury mechanism of the peel back where our biceps tendon's kind of twisting and tugging on our labrum. It's also really important as we get to ball release, because like we talked about, to get your arm up overhead, you need a lot of upward rotation. So if you're going to get all the way out here as well, you need a lot of scapular upward rotation at the finished position as well. Okay, so as we go through kind of this article series, we're going to talk not just about how to address these with exercises, but also what happens if you don't have these positions as you go through your mechanics. One of the things that is really important in terms of making sure that that scapula starts in a good position and stays in a good position functionally is having good core control. So if you're a guy who goes into a lot of extension, what happens is that lat shortens down here, it shortens at your rib cage, it shortens at your scapula, and it pulls you into a little bit of internal rotation. So if you're a guy who wants to get to this position and really lay back, pulling into a big extended posture cranks that scapula down even more, makes it harder to get true external rotation, and doesn't allow that shoulder blade to get up where we need to be. So core positioning has a big role in making sure that that scapula gets to a good position of upward rotation, and make sure that that ball and socket congruency is true throughout the delivery.